Lieutenant General Sir Giffard Le Quesne Martel KCBKBEDSOMC MIMechE was a British Army officer who served in both World War I and World War II. He was the son of Brigadier General Charles Philip Martel, CB, Chief Superintendent of Ordnance Factories. He married Maud Mackenzie on 29 July 1922 and they had two children, a son, Major Peter Martel, MC, born 1938, and a daughter, Gillian, born 1941. Familiarly known as Q Martel, or just Q, he was a pioneering British military engineer and tank strategist. Giffard Le Quesne Martel entered the Royal Military Academy, Woolwich, in 1908 and was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Royal Engineers on 23 July 1909. Martel was instrumental in the establishment of the Royal Navy and Army Boxing Association in 1911 and was Army and Inter-Services boxing champion both before and after World War I. In 1916, as a sapper officer with direct experience of the first British use of tanks on the Somme, Martel was put in charge of recreating a 1.5-mile wide replica of the British and German trench systems, complete with no man's land, at Elverton, Norfolk, as part of a tank training ground. There he developed a keen interest in tank theory, believing them to be the future of warfare, and in November 1916 he wrote a paper, A Tank Army, suggesting an army composed entirely of armored vehicles. As JFC, Fuller's GSO3. The wide-ranging ideas set out in this paper profoundly influenced Fuller's thinking, which at the time simply regarded the tank as no more than a useful adjunct to infantry on the battlefield. Martel was also interested in the construction of wire net roads as deployed in the British Army's 1917-1918 campaign in the Sinai and Palestine, and the use in supporting tracked vehicles. In late 1916, Martel was on Huel's staff at Burmacourt in France, assisting Fuller on the operational planning that culminated in the British tank tactics employed at the Battle of Cambrai. In addition to his MC in DSO, in the course of the war Martel was mentioned in dispatches 5 times. Intra-war. In 1919, Martel was able to combine his two interests of tanks and military bridging when he became head of the experimental bridging establishment at Christchurch, Hampshire, which researched the possibilities of using tanks for battlefield engineering purposes such as bridge laying and mine clearing. Here he continued trials on modified Mark V tanks. The bridging component involved an assault bridge, designed by Major Charles Inglis Ree, the Canal Lock Bridge, which had sufficient length to span a canal lock. Major Martel mated the bridge with the tank and used hydraulic power generated by the tank's engine to maneuver the bridge into place. For mine clearance, the tanks were equipped with 2-ton rollers. Martel also developed his new bridging concept at the EBE, the Martel Bridge, a modular box-girdle bridge suitable for military applications. The Martel Bridge was not developed, but its modular construction became the basis of the Bailey Bridge. In 1954, the Royal Commission on Awards to Inventors awarded Martel £500 for infringement on the design of his bridge by the designer of the Bailey Bridge, Donald Bailey. Martel also continued to pursue his interest in tanks independently. In 1925 he built, in his own garage, a one-man tank kit powered by a car engine and capable of a speed of 15 miles per hour. After a demonstration to the War Office, Morris Commercial Motors was contracted to build 4 test models, the first of which was delivered in 1926. And as a result of the publicity, Carden-Lloyd tractors built of similar one-man machine, the Carden-Lloyd one-man tank kit. In 1927, 8 more Martel tankets were ordered to assess the potential role in forward reconnaissance. They were tested along with 2 man-Carden Lloyd tankets in maneuvers with the experimental mechanized force on Salisbury Plain in 1927 and 1928. When Martel was commanding officer of a company of Royal Engineers stationed there, the idea for a single-man fighting vehicle was soon dropped as it became apparent that one operator could not control the vehicle at the same time as firing a weapon and the British Army requirement for a light tank. The light tank Mark I was a development of the Carden Lloyd tanket. Morris Motors tried developing a 2-man version of the Martel design and Crossley Motors a further version, the Morris Martel, in 1927 with Kegress rubber tracks, but after 2 prototypes were tested the project was abandoned. In 1928, the Tank and Track Transport Advisory Committee that Martel was a member of became the Mechanical Warfare Board, which was to liaise with industry and to advise on technical matters relating to mechanized transport. In 1929, Martel was seconded to the King George V's own Bengal Sappers and Miners and then served as an instructor at the British Indian Army's Staff College in Quetta from 1930 until 1934. From 1936 until 1939, Martel served at the War Office, firstly as Assistant Director of Mechanization, then from 1938 as the Deputy Director with the temporary rank of Brigadier. In 1936, he attended a large-scale tank exercise in the Belarusian military district of the Soviet Union in which numbers of the Soviet variant of the Carden Lloyd tanket, the T-27, took part. World War II. In the prelude to World War II, Martel was appointed commanding officer of the 50th Northumbrian Division, Territorial Army in February 1939 with the rank of Major General. The division had been converted from October 1938 to motorized, with the whole of the infantry being carried by large lorries. With the outbreak of war, 50 embarked for France on the 14th of September 1939 as part of the British Expeditionary Force. There, on the 21st of May 1940, during the Battle of France, Martel directed the tank attack on General Major Erwin Rommel's 7th Panzer Division in the Battle of Arras, in which the German front line was driven back 8 miles. The gains could not be held, but the Germans were forced to cease their offensive and regroup, so buying time for the BEF's evacuation from Dunkirk. Following the BEF's evacuation, Martel became the commander of the Royal Armoured Corps in 1940, where he put his theories of armoured warfare to good use. In March 1941, he gave the military attaché of the then neutral USA in London, Brigadier General Raymond E. Lee, a report outlining his experiences and assessment of the German armoured tactics in France. Martel was promoted to Lieutenant General in 1942 but was moved from the Royal Armoured Corps that September and the position of commander was abolished. He then spent some time on postings in Burma and India. In March 1943, Martel became the head of the military mission to the Soviet Union. He assessed the effectiveness of the Soviet order of battle and tactics during a visit to the front line in the Kursk-Oryol region between 11 and 19 May 1943. In his autobiography, Martel describes advising the Soviet High Command (St.U.He) to allow the Germans to strike first at the Battle of Kursk. To what extent his advice affected the course of the battle is debatable, since his first conference with St.U.He did not occur until late May 1943, while the Soviet Western Front commander, Marshal Georgy Zhukov, had been advocating the same tactics since the previous march. However, Martel's advice that the most effective way of preventing the enemy from exploiting a breakthrough was by pushing on the shoulders of the penetration may have proven useful. His subsequent reports based on his visit to the Soviet frontline and his discussions with the Red Army Tank Directorate concluded that the Russian battlefield experience would be far more relevant to armored tactics in the forthcoming invasion of Normandy than that of the British Army in the North African campaign. Martel's intelligence gathering and his clear and perceptive analyses of the Soviet military position were commended by his superiors at the War Office. But with the arrival of the new and overtly anti-communist head of RAF mission, Air Marshal Sir John Babington, in September 1943, his working relationship with the Russians deteriorated with a marked decline in cooperation. He was recalled, being replaced by Lieutenant General Montague Brocas Burrows, and left Moscow on 7 February 1944. Later that month, he lost his right eye as a result of a German bombing raid on London. Subsequent life. Martel was knighted in 1943 and retired from the army in 1945 with the rank of Lieutenant General. He stood as the unsuccessful Conservative Party candidate for the Barnard Castle constituency in the 1945 UK general election. On his retirement, Martel wrote on military matters. He died at his home in Camberley, Surrey, on 3 September 1958. Publications: Bridging in the Field, The Institution, 1922. Assenby 0008 CIUZW. In the Wake of the Tank, The First 18 Years of Mechanization in the British Army. Sifton, Praedon Amp Co. 1935. Assenby 000881E7W. Our Armored Forces, An Account of Their Operations During the War of 1939–45. Faber and Amp, Faber, 1945. Assenby 0014 MI8UC. The Problem of Security. Michael Joseph, 1945. Assenby 0014 MCXIE. The Russian Outlook. Michael Joseph, 1947. Assenby 0018T5FW. An Outspoken Soldier, His Views and Memoirs. Sifton Praedon Amp Co. 1949. Assenby 0007J06CQ. East vs. West. Museum Press, 1952. Assenby 0006DAA6K.